Hello, thank you, and thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm Max Alex. Couldn't make it for this call, but the work put into this analysis and presentation is impressive on this side. But I will be doing the talking. So today I'm gonna talk about the upcoming possible increase in max effective balance and its effect on rewards and risk from the perspective of the protocol and perspective from the whole validators as whole a little bit. And my presentation would be focused on duality between compounding rewards as an effect of increasing the possible effective balance to 2K48 is, and some risks involved under the hood, which was highlighted in research by Dapline, but and enhanced a little bit from our side in terms of the effect on slashing, the most common slashing, the attestation double vote, and how using basically huge validators could increase the risk of not the risk, but the expected value of slashing that is happening. So the focus would be on this duality, and the research is basically of how can different configuration between 32 and 2K48 ETH validators result in terms of rewards, depending on the APR, CL, and EL network rewards, depending on skimming time or partial withdrawal time, which is a function of total validator set size, and the validator queue or gas price. And on the risk side, it's dependent on reaction time for the incident if that happened, and the dividend rate. That's the rate of the slots that have different view on the chain and would lead to violation of double attestation in case of validator performing this violation and detected. And the first part, the left part, is the rewards view. So the general idea is pretty straightforward. Compounding is cool, and compounding could increase the rewards in very long period of time. This graph is for 30 years, which is extremely high, but to represent the idea. However, on short-term perspective, we're basically speaking about 3% of 3%, assuming the perfect sense of daily compounding for this. And the second point I want to highlight here, we are not living in a world where compounding is impossible at all. For example, for the protocol, it's already implemented with skimming and using the ETH generated within new validators running. So let's go with estimation of how exactly moving the size of validators and utilizing the feature of basically validator growing by itself and increasing incremental reward could affect the rewards. And on the first, again, super basic sense, yes, the compounding brings additional value in terms of rewards, and on really long perspective, 10 years, it could be around 17%, from the validators starting from 32 ETH, which could be utilized now with existing skimming. For example, with Steph, you can build basically the hedging process, utilizing the rewards generated every 60 days and paying the transaction fee and the share for the node operator and the DAO, but the effect would be the same. And on the general huge level, on the protocol level, trying to find the optimal solution in terms of the validators, because increasing the validators balance decrease the amount of time it needs to basically increase the incremental reward and utilize the ETH to participate in the rewards. We've built a model and tweaked with different parameters. One of them is APR, another is current skimming cycle, the amount of time it needs to get the rewards generated from the validator. The validator effective balance as a control variable, and enter queue and gas price as the variables representing the environment, as like the longer the enter queue and greater the gas prices, the lower the effectiveness of the current skimming when like there's all of the validators at 32 ETH and the rewards are just collected and used for starting new validators. And basically the results like represents the existing logic of like we are not comparing compounding with nothing, but comparing compounding with already pretty precise method of like including the ETH to participating in consensus reaching mechanism. So basically the effect of APR in like normal condition without like constant huge pressure in terms of validator queue or without like normal prices on gas are almost like non-existent. And the peculiar thing is like if compounding is utilized, it should be utilized on like really huge validators, like above 1,700 ETH, because that's the size, reducing the amount of time to get this ETH for participating in consensus level lower than 8.5 days that it's required for skimming for the like sizable protocol who can utilize the rewards from multiple 32 ETH validators to start up the new validators. Even in harsh conditions, like with 20K validators in the queue and with abnormal prices for the gas and the transaction for starting the new validators, like the increase in the rewards is like almost insignificant. It's like 0.002 additional APR due to compounding. Again, because we're not comparing compounding with nothing, we're comparing compounding with the current process, which works quite well. And the recap here, again, just from the rewards perspective, like in a realistic scenario, the additional amount of rewards in APR is like almost insignificant and requires consolidating to like huge amount of validators to like outpace the current skimming cycle of 8.5 ETH, which could increase with the number of validators, but could decrease if like after the consolidation would be available, we would observe actual reduction in number of validators, but not the amount of stake ETH. And this is a tool that could be utilized in more harsh market conditions or like staking conditions, but right now there is no like obvious incentives to use compounding rewards on like huge protocol level and on solo staking level. Of course, it's a good solution, but on the really long perspective and with possible hedge within like different staking providers or different DeFi protocols. And like the research is here. Feel free to come share and put some comments if you want. And moving on to like second part of the first view is the risks around this. There are like a bunch of assumptions here, but basically the whole idea is based on like the most common violation for slashing, which is double attestation, and the fact that it doesn't happen immediately on all of the validators performing double attestation. It requires the conditions on the network for the slot in which a validator was double attesting. So as an example of this, you can run your validator on two different machines and you wouldn't be slashed immediately. It would require the assignment for this divergence loan, which are observed at around 4 to 1%. And this whole idea is like well documented and described by Deadline in the link above. So the further insights are like additional layer on this in terms of how it would actually affect the scale of the protocol, for example. So again, the idea is like having multiple validators running on the same host compared to like the one huge validator running on the same host is sacrificing like the variant canary, because if this validators or this host is running on 2 different machines, for example, or 2 different instances, the slashing wouldn't happen immediately. It would happen gradually. And if it's just one validator, you would know when this validator would be slashed. And the indication effect here that if you have that within multiple validators on the same host, the problem could be absorbed with slashing of only part of them and mitigated with nuking the cluster, for example. And like the math behind this is like basically the idea that this observation is conditional probability. Like if you run like 500 or 100 validators on the same host, how much of them would be slashed initially within this divergent slot. And the idea is pretty simple. Like there are 32 slots, and generally they would be distributed by these slots equally, with like expected value within each slot of number of validators divided by 32. But as we're speaking about condition, when this slot is also happen to be divergent slot, there comes like this additional part of the equation, which basically represents the idea that if you have 1 or 2 validators, you would observe like 1 validator slashed or 2 in a bad condition. But if you have lots of validators, the expected value of share of the slashed validators is asymptotically leading to the expected non-conditional value of 132. And the form of this curve is that way that like the most major impact is on the side of consolidating from like 100 to 1 or to 50 or to 10 validators, and consolidating from 500 to 100 validators, for example, increases the expected value of first observed slashing, but the actual increase is like around 1.5%. And this is the standard deviation of share of slashed, like the volatility number, and it's like curved within the form, which could be an additional insight for managing the risk in terms of like the effect that could happen. But like just observing the slashing is not enough. The like actual mitigation comes from the reaction, like the possibility to nuke the cluster before basically all of the validators that are subjective to double attestation violation would be reported and slashed. And investigating how this time depends within different network conditions shows like that the divergent rate, like the basic idea, the greater the divergent rate, the more slots would be lead to slashing reporting for validators. So the less sensitivity of number of validators is observed within every of reaction time, because like, basically that's the time you're racing against the network. And if the divergent rate is like 20%, like there is some sensitivity, but in these 10 epochs, almost all of the validators would be subjected to slashing. Like if it's 1 day, it doesn't depend on most of the divergent rates, how validators are consolidated, because all of them would be subjected to slashing. But with like divergent rate of 1%, which is kind of the low side of observed divergent rate right now, there is still the dependency on the consolidation principle. And like the second, again, quite obvious impact, that like consolidation impacts the expected value and impacts differently on different sizes of the consolidation on the same host. But the reaction time is like incredibly crucial, especially like on the low side, because if you go within the reaction time in terms of like around 1 day, that means that this like canary effect wouldn't provide additional risk mitigation, but like going to from 1 hour to 20 minutes in terms of reaction time could lead to almost triple decrease in terms of EV of like share of the validator slashed at the moment. And like scaling up a little bit, scaling down, sorry, a little bit, because we're speaking like on the hosts running like 200, 100, 500 validators. In terms of like lower number of validators, in this example for like for 256 ETH of capital, the effect of like consolidation is more severe because of the like function of conditional probability. Within 1 hour reaction, having like 8 validators mean that during this 1 hour, like it's expected to slash only 20% of them, and then you can nuke the cluster and reconfigure what's going on, why is it happening. Whether if it's 1 validator, you get slashed, and you like doesn't have this additional mitigation with double attestation only on divergence side. But of course, if we're moving to like longer reaction time, the effect is still persists. It's always here, but reduces to like much smaller scale and with higher divergent rate. Again, like with the most like gruesome scenario, there is no impact on the number of validators running, but if there is a commitment to like faster reaction, there is still a reasonable incentive to not consolidate all of your validators to one, but run them separately, considering like the most common risk, the risk of double attestation violation. So recap here, like is basically like purely from mass perspective, and again, focusing only on double attestation violation, consolidating validators running on the same host is like would increase expected value of share of slashed validators in any case, but given that the perspective is greater, decreasing number of validators is not so significant when we're speaking about numbers like decreasing to 100 or 50 validators on the same host. But if we're going to like 1 to 10 validators on the same host, the effect is really, really impactful. And the reaction time is like determining factor is like if reaction time is high enough, it doesn't matter how the structure of validators on the same host is formed, because all of them would be slashed during the high reaction time. If there is a commitment for like lower reaction time within like current observed divergent ratio of the network, it is there are strong incentives to keep basically small validators rather than consolidating them to one and running one validator on the one host. So going on with like the recap of recaps, there is 2 sides of this talk on rewards and risks, and again, not covering all of the possible consequences for the network, for example, but it's important to have a clear review on like the most prominent ones, the rewards. The effect is like almost non-existent no matter how configuration is optimized. And on the risk sides, consolidation of validators could be done given the other reasons for do this, with like reasonable increase in risk in terms of like 1 or 1.5% in expected value for attestation happening, but for like lower amount of validators on the same host, it would drastically reduce the mitigation that exists currently. And that's it. Thank you so much.